Hi, I'm back with wonderful Bryce from up in Tauranga, one of our golf physios from around New Zealand. Nice to see you again, Bryce.
Yeah, great to see you, Emma.
And today we are talking about the thoracic core. So for golfers, but actually generally in the conditions that we often see in our physio clinic, right, Bryce?
That's right. So if you look at the thoracic core, I don't think it's often talked about, but this is the great work around gravity muscles through Gravity Fit by Dr. Carolyn Richardson from Australia. So she's worked many, many years in terms of the difference between looking at the body and really establishing through space research, particularly through European Space Agency, NASA, and some bed rest studies, in that really we have two groups of muscles within the body. The gravity muscles, which are our holders, and then on top of that we've got our movement muscles, which clearly do our movement, and their job descriptions are quite different. So one of the main things that comes out of there, I think, if we're looking for things that changed a lot for me, was around the thoracic core. So I think as a term, a lot of people may not be necessarily aware of it, but we know about lumbar core. We've heard lumbar core. We might have heard a bit about cervical core, but we do have this thoracic core. So a lot of people have been taught, without trying to be controversial, the shoulder blades back. Really would see that as probably counterproductive. And with that, getting that straight thoracic spine rather than the nice kyphosis, that nice little curve, to getting that nice S shape effectively, isn't it? Nice lumbar lordosis, nice thoracic kyphosis, and then a nice cervical lordosis there. So when we look at someone just standing around, we really should see that nice kyphosis, and we should see the scapulars sitting nice and flush on that rib cage. And I would say that it's probably fairly rare, because winging scapulars, winging shoulder blades are taking flight everywhere, really.
They really are, and you're right. Like even the patients that I see, even if they're coming in with ankle and even shoulder problems, the shoulder blades is just so missed, and you've actually really got to load them, because our day-to-day life isn't always training. We're very sedentary now compared to what it used to be, evolutionary, and that has a really big impact, the shoulder blade, on the rib cage, because it's a muscle bone joint where most things are bone, like bone here, bone, but the way the shoulder blade sits on the rib cage is to do with the muscles, and there's so many multiple ones that will impact if it's rotating down, side, forwards and backwards. And you're right, we've been trained for this retraction, or this pulling back and together, and it gets pushed in the gym setting a lot, and it's being aware that actually it's the width we want, isn't it? And that coming almost around sensation, and that's activating the right muscles that are also linked into breathing as well, particularly with serratus anterior.
So serratus is huge. That's the guy that's holding those ribs, that scapular flush. And if we go back to this gravity system, so the gravity muscles is, Carolyn would talk about, as they're a sensory system. And you mentioned our sedentary lifestyle. So without stimulus of gravity, unless we're, if you think even the fit population now, a lot around rowing, biking, swimming, which is fantastic, absolutely. But the gravity system isn't really being challenged much in those environments either. So as a sensory system, our gravity muscles just detune. So we know we pop someone in space. I mean, these astronauts are coming back with enormous problems. The movement muscles are fine, so they've been working around the space station, but their gravity system's gone, and within 2 or 3 days, I think it is, that system is switching off. So the thing around the gravity system too is, even if it's working a little bit, as it fatigues, which can fatigue quickly. And I think on the Golf Focused Physio, there was a video there showing the quick fatiguing of the scapula.
Your Instagram, you mean your Instagram Golf Focused Physio? If someone wants to see it? Is that the one? That's a really good video.
It's a pretty powerful one, I think, but it shows within 3 to 6 simple wall press-ups how you've got what looks in the first instance a pretty good situation. But by the 3rd, and certainly by the 6th, just watching buttermelt, really. And you can imagine what's happening in the golf swing. So, they fatigue, and they can fatigue quickly if they're not correct, but they don't feel tired. So they just stop working. And as they do that, they won't respond to, oh, come on, I'll get them working. They just get rude and tell you they're not. Where your movement, I was going to do an action, but I can't. Not on here. They do sort of put a finger up, but the movement muscles, however, when they fatigue, they burn and they ache, and we know about that, and we tell it to keep going, and it'll keep going, and if we're gritty enough, they'll keep going. But gravity's they just stop working. So those poor golf shots, the ones towards the end of the round, or this is going to be one of the big reasons why. And the system fits for it to work well. It's part of the way the body's designed to work, and of course it's integrated when we talk with the Gravity Fit, and we use that model, the Gravity Fit exercise model. The diaphragm and the breathing is a massive part of doing it well.
Yeah. Well, I think if you're going that core, thoracic core, well, that's the floor of the thoracic core, really, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And it makes a big difference to that movement. And the way I think of it, like I use my lovely colourful balls, but that what's also impacting is the pressure inside that whole core cylinder as one piece of it, and then the muscles that are going to influence it all around it. So if you don't get that right, then you're going to change things like your centre of gravity, and even just the whole transfer of load from your upper body down to the actual golf club as well, if you're looking at that in that sort of respect. So it's pretty powerful from that. But to train it, what I love there is the emphasis on fatigue, because you can play a few days going all right when you're at tournaments, and then suddenly things can go off the rails, or we can be traveling and not be doing activating those muscles, and then it can flow through in so many parts of the body.
Yeah, and if you go back a few years ago, and it's nice to bring this name into it, is Ramsey McMaster, who was an inspiration for a lot of us. And I think in your webinar the other day, the pistol grip and foot stomps type scenario. So without necessarily understanding it initially, but when you do that, you can feel the activation. So there is this automatic activation under gravity, but it can be enhanced. And we talk about the endurance of the muscle, but also the ability to do it under load.
Yeah. There's a few tools that we can use, really, isn't there, for that? And my favourite stuff is still, you've got to get the breathing pattern right, then start strengthening the diaphragm and core, and there's some great tools for that. My favourite is the Power Breathe. I'm not sponsored by them. I do know the guys at this company, but I'm definitely not sponsored by them, and I know that they are a fabulous product. It's probably my favourite. So this is a inspiratory muscle trainer, and so it's like your dumbbells for your diaphragm, in the way you can think of it. And what it does is it's actually working on strengthening the muscles in the inhale, not the exhale, because that's the diaphragm actually only works one way. And then it relaxes slowly back up in what we call eccentric control. And the powerful action with using something like this is you can, as I think we talked about in the last video, is you can actually build that stability around the diaphragm by increasing that pressure, by increasing the endurance, and also therefore how long it can last under load, and therefore the other muscles around it will be impacted. And that'll impact the thoracic rings in many ways, so around there, and then the thoracic core, by how the shoulder stability and the muscles will flow off that, because it'll impact even the posture and positioning.
Yeah, I mean, I think that to remember too, the gravity system is throughout the body.
Yes.
We talk thoracic core, so just to emphasize, it is throughout the body. And another example of that fatigue is, I guess my own example, and I'd see it with others on the driving range. For my level of golf, I can hit a couple of balls and I'm, starting to pat myself on the back and thinking I'm doing okay. But by the 6th and 7th, invariably around there, I'll start chinking it, in high cuts. And I think, what on earth is happening? And what I used to do is keep practicing. And it just got worse and worse. Well, now what I do is I stop and able to rest, because it's my gravity system fatiguing that's making the difference. Then I give myself a minute or two, and then I come back to it, and I'm fine again for 5 or 6.
I love that, because the pro golfers I worked with, we're there from dusk to dawn, and I'm like, this is not serving your body right now. You're smashing yourself in bad patterns and training a bad pattern.
Yeah, and I think, if we're digressing a bit, even carrying a bag, that if you're holding good posture, you're fatiguing your gravity system carrying your bag. So by the time you come to hit the ball, you're in a slightly different scenario around muscle capability.
Even just like dragging dragging your bag, if it's still, instead of carrying it, if you still got it on wheels, that's still that rotation, and then that shoulder blade not actually trying to hold against the rib cage in that rotation position. That's going to influence it when you go up for your shots as well. Yeah,
and of course in those in both scenarios there, when we're talking about good breathing patterns between shots, it's going to make that ever harder to do too, because of carrying the bag and into there, So I think that's something for players to consider for sure.
And so I guess that for me, it comes back to being fit for golf, not just calm for golf, which is the breath component, and feeling relaxed for golf. Yes. But fit for golf for any sport you do, you've got to have that that base movement and control, and then you've got to learn what that looks like for the sport you're playing.
Absolutely, it's the patterns there across it all, isn't it? And I think we talked about the other day about training for golf, but training for any sport 16 hours a day. So to stand over a golf ball with a golf club in your hand and expect it to all happen, when the other 16 hours of the day, those patterns, the breathing, the postures aren't being practiced, well, to me, it's like a computer running 2 bits of software. I mean, it just gets confused. So you want the same, because it is the same.
That comes with posture too, though. If you're trying to get someone to change their posture when on the course and when they're walking, one of the things I did with Josh, one of my pro golfers, was change the way that he walked on the course. And it was a game changer. And we actually even got approval from we were on the Challenge Tour at that time. I don't think it was European, it was Challenge at that stage. And to use elastic blue band, lovely technique that I learned from Drew Montgomery, the golf physio in Auckland, and had him walking with it under his buttocks. So actually under here. And because it's not a golf aid, this is what they do. As long as it's not a golf aid, even though it gets the core firing and actually helps his stability and pattern, it meant that he was able to get the thoracic core and the core, lumbar core, actually activated by getting that stability position. And it really helped, because when I'd watch him going around the course, which was, again, that's the beauty of working one-on-one in that sense. I was so lucky to be able to observe and for that whole time, is you'd start to see holes that would go downhill, and not maybe have 1 or 2 bad shots, and then as walking, the next few holes would throw off, then the shots would get worse, and it was just this kind of and so then when we started to add this, and I said, I think you're fatiguing on your walking, not actually your golf swing or your thoracic. Your area that you're fatiguing is on your gluteals and your other muscles, which will then set you up for failure when you get to the point to tee off, which then is a mind game, because you're like, well, why am I not, I get up to the tee and I feel okay, but then it just goes somewhere else. But that walking could have been the trigger for it. And you're doing active holes. Yeah,
but again, the key there isn't, he didn't feel fatigued.
No.
So arguably it could be the muscles, the gravity type ones that have fatigued without him being aware of it.
Absolutely. And we showed, I look at the video. So I videoed him one day as it's kind of checking him out as he's walking around. And I joked, I said, seeing the progress from that pattern from when we were in Switzerland last year to what it was in February this year at the New Zealand Open, I was like, I mean, you may not be performing where you want to be in other ways because you other factors with it, but my gosh, that was just so proud that you can make those changes and didn't need therefore the tools. You can wean yourself off tools, not because you have to have them, but they are there as an add-on and as a way of stimulating and giving you feedback. And it's finding the right tools in your toolbox. It's very cheesy.
And I think the term feel the feel. What does it feel like, so you can identify it. Because a lot of the tools are about feedback, isn't it? So at the end of the day, what am I supposed to be feeling? Oh yeah, that's what it feels like when I'm doing it well. Yeah.
Golf to me should be meditation, because it's all about going in and looking in your body and checking where it's at.
Yeah.
Like it's meditation and movement. It's why most people that play, they love it, because it's such a nature walking environment, because it feels good. But again, we may be disconnected from that consciousness of actually what your body is doing, and we walk around like headless bodies most of the time. So you're right, feeling, tuning in, whatever part of it is actually could then improve many parts of your life.
But going back to your power breathe, working beautifully on strengthening that diaphragm, as long as, like you've mentioned as well, the pattern is still good. But a wonderful tool to use while you do the other exercises, whether it's Gravity Fit or your bands and that sort of thing, because again, it's bringing it all together. So, can you have your breathing pattern absolutely beautiful while the rest of the system's working beautifully as well, rather than isolation, and particularly training in isolation. I train my breathing and then I'll train my other systems. It's actually, that it's all together, isn't it?
Yes, we get sport specific with these tools as well. Like you said, with the power breathe, that's one of my favorite things is actually being creative and playing around with it. Yeah. Whether it's I remember having golfers and gyms overseas, on busso balls, and then doing wood chops with the power breathe in the mouth, like really loading it up, and your brain, whoa, so much information. So then when it goes back to more of like an offloaded, it's like, oh yeah, got this. It's a lot easier. And then add in the Gravity Fit, which we'll talk about in a second. Yeah. But that one of the things I went to Canada a few years ago, and one of my little wee side trips was actually going to a university that was researching the inspiratory muscle trainer. So the power wasn't power breath itself, but it was looking at INT for athletes, and I think it was for cyclists at that time. And they did research looking at, again, the strength gains with the power breathe when you use so what they call your MIP, your maximum inspiratory pressure, which was what we're trying to train. Yeah. And they looked at it with people just doing a normal like upper chest breathing pattern versus that diaphragm, and then what it would flow into performance. And it was very clear from the research that it had to be, people can do a bad pattern still with using the power breathe, and it's not as effective. You've got to do it in the right pattern, which is that 360 degree talked about in the past.
Yeah. And I think the correlation to that strength of the diaphragm, often that thickness, your power lifters, your shot putters, they all got big fat diaphragms, don't they? Yeah. So you look at the power required, or preferably required in a golf drive. Yeah. Then it makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah. And it's pretty, looking at the ultrasound of that too, there's a really good, great physios up in Auckland, Breathing Works guys, looking at ultrasound with athletes, and I know from what Scott said in past research stuff, and he's looking at for his masters, I think, looking at how that diaphragm thickens, and that there's, you can be quite a top athlete and still be very thin with it, or have high levels of anxiety, and it can be very thin because that muscle's not being trained. So it's just looking inwards, and often we think, well, we need MRI scans, or we've got to look at the x-rays, but as physiotherapists, we see a lot and observe a lot, and we correlate that with that kind of x-ray vision of what's going on. And people need to be able to get their own x-ray vision built up to be able to take it into the fit for golf, and then the on-course performance.
A lot of as physios involved with golfers, and our information's gathered just by watching prior to anything formal. We might be bringing them in for a screening where, in effect, more than half of the screening's just been done watching them. Sit around the classroom, walk from the car park, chat to their mates. That's where a lot of the information's gathered, because that's their life. Versus looking at little windows. And I think when you bring up imaging, we're looking at movement. Most imaging's a photo, isn't it?
It's a slice in time.
Yeah, it has value in some points, but not in others. But going back to, I think, still there. Yeah, going back to using the inspiratory muscle train in conjunction with other things. I think the one I think we should emphasise, as you got me to revisit it the other day in your wonderful webinar, was that breathing into the back, that 360 process, because you can certainly when I do it, and I do it hopefully a lot better than I was, there is that far better activation, isn't there? That sense of stability through there.
Yeah, and that's one of my favourite tools for putting, actually. And so I use it, again, train people off the course to be able to almost do the power breath in a low squat position. So you actually block the front and the upper chest, and then you have to get that posterior breathing. So it's kind of driven back there, so that when you do go out there, it's much more natural and it has that base of stability. And then I use a lot of golfers that to do that pattern of feeling it, coming back to that sensation before they actually putt. And they like reading the line, and that's their way. You'll see Josh do it quite a lot.
Yeah.
So it's a great thing to be aware of, and tools. Tell me about other stuff that you use. I work with golfers that have used a Gravity Fit, and I love the idea, but it's not an area that it's very much your teaching and spreading of the word. So tell me a bit more about the Gravity Fit tool.
So it follows from a wonderful journey for me, as I say, working with the guys at Gravity Fit, and particularly Dr. Carolyn Richardson, who's behind all the research there. But the tool you'll see a lot on some of the social media around is the Thoracic Pro.
Yeah.
So that's that there with handles. I won't necessarily put it on at the moment, but effectively that's sitting on my back in between my shoulder blades.
Yep.
Up into that area there. You've got your paddles on the side, which you've got to consider the scapulars may well sort of sit in and around that area, but be mindful that it isn't about jamming those shoulder blades back. So
otherwise you lose that connection, don't you?
Yeah, so they've just got to sit nice. The key is that the cue, and most people, if they're watching this, preferably in standing, but as they sit, it's the sense of pushing your thoracic spine back into the spikes. Or the other cue we would use, the shoulders are down and relaxed, is the sense of widening your back.
Yeah.
And
you do that with the arm wide position as well. I love that.
Yeah.
And keeping that width while you bring the arms down. But most people could bring their arms down and go, oh, I'm back down here. It's actually going to feel what wide is like. We're just not aware of it. And then that breathing in, the inhale into thoracic is actually a good way of getting it too.
Good. Yeah, lovely. So it's subtle, so you just, it's a 15-20% type contraction. And immediately when you do get that, your lumbar core will activate.
Yeah.
Okay, it's the sequence. You get your thoracic working.
Yeah.
Lumbar core will activate automatically. And being mindful that the transverse abdominis, that deep muscle, is the corset one, which is going to narrow that waist for the diaphragm to sit and work nicely there. Your obliques are movement muscles. So those
they're not meant to be bracing and overworking.
That's right. So people need to be mindful that, when people are taught to brace and hold, which is a terrible thing for breathing, let alone. Yeah. So the movement muscles designed to do their job and then relax. And the gravity muscles, if it's a healthy system, will hold tone. So at rest, they will have tone.
Yeah.
And it makes sense sitting here without it would just be a jellyfish, So we all got them working to an extent. We just want that system at rest. It's just holding us in beautiful posture. So it's a strong, flexible spine, I guess. And we talk about the connections between the leg and the pelvis, head and the neck, and the shoulder and the shoulder girdle. So, but going back to that, and then with the arms and the handles, that provides an actual load down through there, so mimicking gravity, which assists in the activation. Yeah. But as a golf training tool, it's largely used as well as a means of keeping arms and thorax connected.
Yeah. And it's so functional. You can use it in so many different positions and techniques. And sometimes it's just about firing it up so that the brain's trained, off and on and off. And I really like seeing how it can be used in a variety of ways. And it's so light to travel with. Like, so for my pros, it's like, because I'm always like, what is in that bag of goodies that they had with them? But it's like, there's like bands coming out and breathers and guns. The massage guns are big now these days too.
Yeah, that's got to look sort of interesting going through customs now, isn't it?
Oh my gosh, we had that with Josh going through China. It was hilarious, and he was going in front. And I was like, you're not pointing out my tray, mate. I don't want to be looking like I've got that in my
No.
It suddenly starts vibrating as it goes through the sensors. Anyway.
Yeah. No, it's all good. What was I going to say there too?
Very distracted by massage tools.
Yeah. But the...
Oh, you used the big gravity other one as well. That's the gravity fit, but there's the suit as well you talked about.
Yeah, so the suit is really just coming into its fore now. So because with the Thoracic Pro, up till now there's been the core awareness belt as well as the gravity cap. So they're all means of building up this gravity system. So, but the gravity suit is something, we'll be having in New Zealand soon. I've got a few, couple here. It's a tight suit, and by activating in it, you are automatically activating your gravity system.
Yeah.
I've got a piece that will come over the head as well that adds more load. So if you think, look, one of the swing, again, I'm not the coach, but one of the things I don't like personally seeing in that golf swing is under load, the person who loses posture on downswing.
It couples down.
Yeah. So as the G forces increase and they just start collapsing down, so building up that system, so under big load that the postures remain the same, and then the movement remains as it was designed, so it can move. So
yeah, using that with the golf pack on, like learning to train yourself as well, walking around with the load on you while lengthening. There's so many different applications I could see it being used, but that's a down the track one, and it's really what the level you're at in regards to it and what your problem is. And often we don't know what the problem is, so that's why you got to work with the right people to actually do the problem solving, in a team environment.
Yeah, and that's the great, the stuff I personally love is something, again, the people I get to work with, like yourself now, because they're all good people, and it's sharing that knowledge. So one of the most fun I'll have is standing with the golfer hitting balls while I stand there with a golf coach, and we're sharing that information, and he may be looking at the technical part of it, and we can share information around the breathing and how do we get that swing change, not just from a technical teaching point of view, but through a physical application.
Absolutely.
What if we do that to, what if we do that to the foot? What if we do that to the, the diaphragm? What if we,
It's research in action, isn't it? And I mean, the coaches that I've worked with, one of the ones that I've travelled with, it's hilarious, and they're very open to trying and looking at these things and also sharing their knowledge. And so, because I'm not a golfer or any means qualified in any of that golfing coaching stuff. I don't want to be, because my tool is to use the body observation. And I kind of see it, this is my weird analogy, I see it as I'm like, gynecologists can be males, they don't have to give birth, so in many ways but, you don't have to be a top golfer to be able to go and think you can train your way you breathe to help that out.
Yeah, thank goodness. Otherwise, I would have been demoted a long time ago.
So is there any other sort of major tools that you have on the go for the golfers, or those are your kind of favourite ones at the moment that
I think, the gravity fit stuff really is important, but it's not a separate thing. It's part of the system, and as per diaphragm, it all integrates. But to me, it's the suspension of the race car, of a car. You can have the motor getting as powerful as you like, but if the suspension's rubbish, then we've got variation in performance, sort of thing. So the gravity fit for sure. The breathing massively in spiritual muscle trainer. I'm a big fan of the resistance bands. The full loop band as well. Yeah. So if you got the I can run and grab one, but basically a full loop and various strengths, because all the players can travel with those. And anything you can do in a gym, you can pretty much do with those. On tour, they don't have to sort of spend 20 minutes in the taxi getting down to a gym somewhere. They can do a lot of the work.
Also, what I found is they actually go in your golf bag quite easily. So for the guys doing the warm-ups, travelling at that elite level, it's like I can pull this out and do a few different activations, whether it's pistol grip activations and scapular setting movements to help fire it up. And it's not a load in it, because my God, those bags are heavy. I almost was roped into being a caddy, and I did a carry for a little bit. Went, oh my goodness, pay more to do that.
Yeah, but the good thing is, because life isn't about carting weights, around. So the training on tour is all about these strategies as much as anything, isn't it? Because on course, that's what we're training them for, isn't it? So
yeah, I mean, obviously we're talking at different levels. Like this stuff that we're talking about can be used with the amateurs, weekend warriors, and all the way through to our pros. Because I mean, like I said, I'm working with these pros that you're working with too, and they've got they haven't been taught these things. So there's like a light bulb moment, and I think that's a good thing to be kind of maybe starting a bit of revolution in the way that we look at this, and hopefully more coaches can get behind it and look at this as well, and collaborate.
Yeah,
with that.
Yeah, and I think the opportunity for coaches, as an example, to identify the person who has breathing issues, so if they can learn, like the guy's got dry lips all the time, he's a mouth breather, or I can see he's an upper chest breather. They may not address it, but they know.
You can then point in the right direction as well, isn't it? Yeah. And that's it. When I work with the coaches overseas and stuff, it was really awesome when I got a message saying, oh, that person's he's breathing up in his chest again. I told him to bring it down, and I was like, yes, that's like a big one for me, because that person's spreading the word. Like you said, his knowledge is just spread, and it's just so important that more people gain it like this. And
in fact, what you did there, Emma, reminded me, is quite a nice technique, and I think you use it as well, is that sitting here, no one knows that you're testing breathing, but between the hands at the back and the forearms across the abdomen, you can be sitting in a busy meeting or sitting on the bus, going to the course and getting your feedback, just simply, as far as people think you just got your arms folded, but you are giving yourself some nice feedback about your breathing pattern. In regards to that.
I see it as a super power that's hidden away, and it's really powerful to have. So we can all learn it. That's the thing. So it's good to be using. So thank you, Bryce, for jumping on and sharing knowledge and connecting, and hopefully inspiring golfers around New Zealand and the world to actually try some of the stuff, because it's so powerful. You see it, I see it, and hopefully it can start making some changes, mostly with New Zealand pro golfers. I'm going to say that. We want to still pick the guys around the world. Proud Kiwi here. And if you want to work with you, I'll put the link into the videos as well with Bay Physiotherapy Clinic. I've got that right?
Yeah, Bay Physiotherapy Centre, but Instagram as well, through the Golf Focus Physio. We'll try and post a bit more stuff on there, and we'll work together on some of that too.
Yeah, and it's quite good. I've liked the videos you put on there too. So if you want to check out the scapular and thoracic setting stuff like that, I think that's a really good one for people to go, what do you even mean by it? I enjoy looking at that sort of stuff and sharing knowledge. And then if you want to join me and look at some of the, again, that breath focus for mastering your breath for golf, then I've got my webinar workshops, live workshops every 1 to 2 weeks. So check out my website at thebreatheffect.com, and you'll see webinars, and on that page there you'll get the options for it. So it'd be great to have you guys along, and the great thing is you can do any part of the world, or you can work one-on-one with us over telehealth, which is great because we can see a lot just being in this setting and hearing people's histories, which is perfect.
Fantastic. I certainly recommend your webinar. That was brilliant the other day, and it was a nice way to, I've been using the breathing a lot, but it was a great way to just refocus and always learning more as well. So thank you for that.
You're very welcome. It was great to have you along and share knowledge. So appreciate it.
Cool.
Awesome. Right, we'll sign off and hopefully get some more of these coming along with some more tips and tricks.